Professor. So I will be doing the intro as well as part C for this video project. So the intro on Michel de Montaigne, just for a little bit of a background on Montaigne. So Montaigne was born on 29th February in 1533 and died on 13th September 1592. Montaigne was about 59 years old. So Montaigne was a French philosopher mainly known for how real he was, and by that I mean that Montaigne was a philosopher that often joked and poked fun at other philosophers, because a lot of what Montaigne wrote was, to not take ourselves so seriously. One of his famous quotes is along the lines of, at the end of the day, we all sit with the same legs, the same feet, the same bottom, so we're not that different. So, essays is something that Montaigne's fame rests on. In fact, he is probably known to coin the concept of an essay, and he wrote that in 1596, I believe. So basically, Sir Francis Bacon then later perfected the term essays and published over a decade after Montaigne, and it is usually assumed that there was a direct influence from Montaigne.
Mm-hmm.
And then you want to take it up to A?
Tying this back into A from these three quotes. This part A, or part C, basically shows that Montaigne holds this view of fusion or union, and the three quotes that we picked out were from page 189, page 195, and page 197. I'm going to go through and read those real quick.
You got me to read the first one?
Yeah, you could read page 189.
Okay.
Truly to them.
Truly the name of brother is a beautiful name and full of affection, and for that reason he and I made our alliance a brotherhood. But that confusion of ownership, the dividing, and the fact that the richness of one is the poverty of the other, wonderfully softens and loosens the solder of brotherhood. Since brothers have to guide their careers along the same path and at the same time, at the same rate, it is inevitable that they often jostle and clash with each other. Furthermore, why should the harmony and kinship with begets right here?
Begets, yeah.
Begets these true and perfect friendships be found in them.
The quote on 195.
And that quote just talks a little bit about brotherly friendship in that view.
For this perfect friendship I speak of is indivisible. Each one gives himself so wholly to his friend that he has nothing left to distribute elsewhere. On the contrary, he is sorry that he is not double, triple, or quadruple, and that he has not several souls and several wills to confer them all on this one's object. Talking about how when you have that one true complete friend that you spend all your time and you invest your soul, everything. Going back to what Montaigne said earlier in a previous quote, that he was I and I am him. Because it was him and because it was I. That you just give everything you have to that one friend once you found it.
And giving everything you have to the one friend leaves no room for all the other friends that people may have. Therefore, you can only have one true friendship or one complete friend in the views of Montaigne and Aristotle.
And the last quote is on page 197 at the very bottom. I was already so formed and accustomed to being a second self everywhere that only half of me seems to be alive now. And at this point, he's talking about at the end of his friend, the death, sadly, of his friend. I forgot his name. What was it? Antoinette?
I think it was Antoinette.
I really don't know how to pronounce it. But the death of his friend and mentor, basically, and how that their friendship became so consuming to him that he felt like once his friend died, that he was only a case of his former self, so to speak.
Yeah, like their souls had to intermingle to the point where part of him had died with his friend. And so those were the three quotes that we chose for part A. And the way that they fit together, I would say, is you see that in quote 3, he talks about how when his friend dies, part of him died with him. And this definitely goes hand in hand with quote 2, which talks about being a perfect friend and the perfect friendship. And when you only have so much to give to one person and you give everything that you have, you're so invested that when they pass away, which Montaigne's friend sadly did, part of you goes with them.
Mm-hmm. And this goes in with the intermingling of souls. If your souls really are intermingled, in the words of Montaigne, if it is ripped apart, if part of your new soul is ripped away from you, you will feel like you halfway died with them.
Exactly, and you also see this with romantic relationships, and you could argue that romantic relationships are the one true friendship or the one complete friendship that people have with one another. Okay, we can move into part B, which talks about Montaigne distinguishes true friendship from various other kinds of relationships. How do such relationships differ from 1, the parent-child relationship, 2, love, and 3, marriage, on Montaigne's view?
On page 188, Montaigne, at the bottom paragraph, Montaigne talks about how the relationship between child and father is different than this true friendship because a father wouldn't give everything to the child. He wouldn't speak so freely as he would with a friend. And the child and the inequalities of the parent being in authority over the child would not allow the child to speak the way as he would to a friend, as he would with his father.
Exactly, and I think it specifies it being out of more so respect. Yes, from children towards fathers, it is rather respect. And so you can see that the video cut off, but basically quote number 1 talks about how children treat their fathers with a different level of respect and admiration than they do their friends. And now we're going to move into quote number 2, which is on page 190, 191.
Yes, this actually kind of talks both about love and marriage and how that the strain on the woman's soul of a male to female relationship would not be able to withstand that said strain with the intermingling of the said souls. And this is a fairly sexist view, I do believe, but at this time, I forgot what time. When he was alive, I do believe this was like a common thought. And this would make sense seeing as he does follow Aristotle's view, and Aristotle did treasure the friendship between male and male.
So, as far as answering part C, I would like to talk about it both within an Aristotelian context as well as what Montaigne said in his piece of friendship. So first of all, I want to do a recap of what we talked about in class because I feel like that will help me best answer this question. And what we talked about was the 3 different types of friendships. The first friendship is a friendship based off of utility, where your friend can give you something in return for having that relationship and maintaining it. The second one is kind of a hedonistic perspective, in my opinion. It's a friendship of pleasure, where there's a certain pleasure that you get out of the friendship, and that is the sole reason why you're in it, really, or that's the main motivating factor. And finally, the third, which Aristotle, I believe, and also Montaigne will agree on, is the truest form of friendship, is the friendship that is a complete friendship. Now, this is a very wholesome friendship because in this friendship specifically, the friend does not expect anything in return for the amount of love or compassion or effort. There is a level of reciprocity in this kind of friendship, and that is why I believe in answering part C that Montaigne will at least argue that you can only really have one true friend. I don't want to use the word best because I feel like that is something popularized by, teenagers and stuff like that. So to use Montaigne's own words, like a true or complete friend, which I'm sure is something Aristotle also agrees with. I think I have a different book model than you might have, but the quote that I'm going to say, for me at least, is on page 60. For the rest, what we commonly call friendships, are nothing but acquaintance and familiarities, either occasionally contracted or upon by some design, by means of which there happens some little intercourse betwixt our souls. But in the friendship I speak of, they mix and work themselves into one piece with so universal a mixture that there is no more sign of seam by which they were first conjoined. So here Montaigne really talks about the concept of souls and how, because you only have one soul, to have a true friend, another true friend, is to have both souls conjoined. And what Montaigne argues, at least, is that a reason why you can't have 100 true friends is you do not have 100 souls. So if we are truthful with our own hearts, we really only have one true friend, according to Montaigne. And another quote that I wanted to talk about is a little bit later, where Montaigne seems to talk about the concept of the power dynamics and reciprocity of friendship. So really the concept of having like an eager and universal fire, a temperate but equal, a constant, gentle, smooth. So a friendship that is both, you know, putting people in a position not just of reciprocity and equal love, but also in a position where that true friend can criticize you, or that true friend can tell you what you're doing wrong, and still have that friendship sustained, is only something which the third category of friendship or relationship can sustain. A hedonistic one, the second type, where there's pleasure and pain, that would be painful, so that friendship would probably be fickle. The first, where there is utility involved, if a friend were to be truthful and if that truth hurt, that would also be a very fickle relationship, and it wouldn't be one of a true friend, because that relationship would also not be able to sustain itself.